How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about Tombs. This is, at the time of recording, the newest entry in the Junji Ito Story Collection, and I really love these things. Junji Ito is a really great horror manga artist, and this, along with all of his other stuff pretty much, really great art, really good, incredibly detailed, but also showing us strange and bizarre things, including some good creatures and body horror. Always really good, but it's not just the art, it's the story. Crazy, insane ideas that you'll be thinking about for days and weeks and just a long time after. And overall, I really am glad that we got this volume out in particular. The title story, Tombs, is really good and classic, a bit of an I Know What You Did Last Summer story, but set in a world where there's this village and you have to bury people in the exact place that they die, and the town is littered with tombstones. It's an interesting tale, it's really good, but it's not even the best in here, because this volume includes two absolute classic stories, Slug Girl and The Window Next Door. I personally can't believe we haven't gotten Slug Girl already. We actually have merchandise in the States for a story that hasn't even come out yet. And that's pretty crazy. But it's so great to see Slug Girl and Window Next Door in here. They're absolutely essential Junji Ito stories, and I'm so glad that we finally get a place to officially read them. And I just love that we got this volume. It's really cool. So yeah, two absolute classics and 9 total stories, but the other 7 stories, they're really good as well. There's, again, like pretty much all of Junji Ito's other stuff, not a bad story in the bunch, and maybe I am gushing a little bit over this, but there's a reason Junji Ito is so popular, and that's because his work is absolute grade A material. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to switch to the close-up camera. I'll show you guys the physical release of this book, show you the, how it's put together, and, well, that's a weird way of putting it. But then I'll do mini reviews for all the stories, I'll show you guys just a little bit of the art, a little bit of the story. I won't spoil it, I won't go anywhere near the twist, which does mean avoiding some pretty sweet art, but whatever, I won't spoil it for you. So, physical media, and then mini story reviews. So without further ado, let's switch to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle taking a closer look at Tombs. Let's go ahead and bring this book closer to the camera, and we're going to begin by taking a look at the physical release. We get Tombs in these big blocky letters with some scratching on them, kind of giving them this stone-like effect. Like I said, the logos always try to invoke something of the title in them. There's the Junji Ito Story Collection badge, and this time around, it's in this nice lime green. The lime green I felt was very intense, but when you see it in the context of this cover, it kind of all makes sense, because the cover is this nice, blue color, and it works together with that. We get these tombstones, and all of the tombstones have, faces and stuff hidden inside them, and the girl walking among the tombstones, who is a character from the story. She's the best friend character, and there is another thing in this that kind of hints at something later in the story, but I don't want to point that out yet. Anyway, flip it to the side, we see the lime green colored continue on the side. These Junji Ito story collections, very intense color. I'm remembering the orange of Smashed, and yeah, pretty intense. There's the badge, this time in white, Tombs, and then the Viz logo with a picture from the comic. And I do have to say, in the actual comic, the very tip top is actually cut off. It goes out a panel. So either they had to find extended artwork, or they went in with Photoshop and fixed the top there. Either way, good attention to detail, because this is a really fun image coming up the spine of the book. And you may notice this is a tiny bit thinner than some of the other ones. I think this comes in at around 350 pages or so, and some of the other ones can go like 400. So it is a tiny bit thinner, but it's really not too bad, you know? Flip it to the back. Fresh nightmares brought to you by horror master Junji Ito. And since this is called Tombs, the majority of this blurb will be about the story Tombs, but it also talks about Slug Girl and The Window Next Door, two of the bigger stories in this collection. And yeah, you definitely want to advertise those. T+, yeah, and $25 US. Now, these Junji Ito stories have been holding out at, I think it was $22.99 for a while. Had to finally do the price bump, you know, inflation and whatnot. Viz Signature, Viz Media, and we can see the back here is the cover zoomed in. There's the girl's face. Cracking the book open, and we get to see these intense green end papers. All the Junji Ito story collections have marbling that matches the spine color, and boy is it intense here. Anyway, cover page with Tombs, and then the table of contents. And the table of contents, we get the stories here. There are 9 of them. Tombs, Clubhouse, Slug Girl, The Window Next Door, so the 2 most classic stories right back to back here. Washed Ashore, this is often known as The Thing That Drifted Ashore. The Strange Tale of the Tunnel, Bronze Statue, Floaters, and The Bloody Story of Shirosuna. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And boy, yeah, that one is bloody. In the back, as always, we get the about the author, which includes a sort of bibliography of all the stuff that Viz publishes and all the awards that he's won. And behind that, we do get the legal page. And I know not a lot of people care about legal, but one thing I do find interesting is the originally published Junji Ito Kisaku. I think that translates to something like Masterworks, and this is volume 9 originally. We only have a few more of these to go, the direct translations from the Masterworks. I think there's only like 3 more of them. I'm sure we'll get more Junji Ito stories, and I don't know if they'll repackage them to be in the story collection brand, or if they'll do like the other ones, you know, like Liminal Zone or Venus in the Blind Spot, and release them as their own thing. Yeah, I don't know. We see that the copyright 2013 originally in Japan, and then down here first printing March 2023. Yeah, this book took 10 years to come over here. Like I said, Viz is currently in the process of fixing a problem we've had for a long time, and that is that Junji Ito stories didn't come over here too quick. It was like some Tomie and Uzumaki, a little bit of things, and in turn there was such a big backlog that they're coming out really fast now. I think with this release, Viz has said they plan on doing quarterly Junji Ito releases from now on. I believe that's what they said at least, and that's 4 books a year from Junji Ito. That is called getting caught up, because like I said, 10 years for this one. Anyway, after this, I want to go ahead and do mini reviews for each of the stories. I'll show you guys just a little bit of the stories and a little bit of the art. I won't be doing any major spoilers, but that being said, I do want to show you guys a little bit of each one, so this might get long from here on out. But anyway, without further ado, to the stories. Alright, first off with these short stories we have Tombs, which I know is often translated as Tomb Town. That's how it is in the Junji Ito Maniac anime that did adapt this story. I guess Viz wanted to go with a simpler translation, keep it brief, short, and sweet. But I did like seeing the expanded version in the comic, because I like the episode in the show, but as always, the comic's going to be better. Anyway, we get a girl who gets a note from her friend who moved away asking them to visit. Her brother is going to drive them, and it all seems nice and happy going to visit your friend. Well, you, of course, are driving down a mountain road, and the brother happens to hit this girl. The girl is going to be all puffy face and disfigured, and she'll wind up dying in the back seat. Since they don't want to ruin their lives by admitting to manslaughter, although I don't know what the laws are like in Japan, but, manslaughter, especially if you're under 18, I mean, it would be bad, but, not as bad as hiding the body. But anyway, they do get to the town, and they find a mysterious tombstone blocking their path. Now, at first I thought this would be a manifestation of their guilt, but it's more of a town with strange rules story, which, does kind of parallel with manifestation of guilt. But you see, there's all these tombstones in the street, and they don't know what's going on. I love the panel where they look out and see all the tombs. The locals will tell them that there's a tradition where you bury people wherever they die in this town, or their soul won't rest. So they meet their friend here, and she even shows that, someone died in her house, one of the previous owners, and now they have a big tombstone just popping up in the middle of their living room. So it is a town with a strange concept, and you do get to see a bunch of the implications that this has. Like, for example, we can't have any tombs in the hospital. Gotta drag this guy out to the field before he dies. And I really do like the town, its weird rules, how it works, but plus the almost I know what you did last summer aspect of trying to cover up that you hit and ran with someone. So there's a bit of a mystery and a bit of a getting away with a crime angle there. In addition to the town with all its weird rules and concept, and some really cool Junji Ito imagery that comes into this one. But like I said, I'm not going to be doing any spoilers, so yeah, you're just gonna have to buy the book if you want to see the ending, because yeah, I don't want to ruin the ending for you guys, but there is some cool art in it, and actually a really, really dark final panel on this one. After that, we get the story Clubhouse, and we get to see the friends and the hole in the door. This is a pretty interesting story. We get an abandoned haunted house, and one of the girls is going to stay behind. The other two are going to go in, and that's where they see something really strange. There's a wall blocking the stairway halfway up, and there's a hole that's been punched in it. Well, one of the girls is going to go up, and the other is going to stay on the first floor, and when they come out of the house, their relationship is strange. Her two friends, the ones that went into the house, aren't talking anymore. She doesn't know why, and one of the friends that went in says, "I don't need that old friend, I have new friends," and they hang out in this clubhouse, and the clubhouse is, of course, the haunted house they were just in, and she's hanging out with this strange group of people that want to change the world. Yeah, there is a little bit of a commentary on college-age elitism here, and the idea that, we totally have the right ideas, but mix that in with a haunted house story, and there is a pretty good reveal at the end of it as to what this is really about. That being said, the story ends on a good place, like I get the note where they were going for. It still feels a little bit abrupt, and like, if you read the story, you might get this, but I really wish there was one more page here, Anyway, after that, the first absolute classic in here. The rest are really good, but this one, Slug Girl, this is one everybody knows and talks about. there's been merchandise for this in the States, even though the story hasn't officially come out in the States yet. It was featured in Junji Ito Collection. It's just really, really great. But anyway, we get this girl, and I think it's her cousin there, who says she's not been talking much lately, and when she does, she has a little bit of a lisp. She goes to her cousin's parents' house and finds them in the backyard trying to eliminate all the slugs by salting them or stomping on them. And she says that the cousin had an irrational fear of slugs. Well, she's wearing this mask, she's losing her ability to talk, and then we get the panel where she comes over, kind of intrudes, and we get to see this horrific image. Her tongue has been turned into a slug. And there's a lot of things people talk about what this story might mean. You know, her irrational fear literally manifesting in her body. Maybe it's talking about physical disability or illness or something. You know, a lot of people compare this to Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, where the guy is unable to work because he's transformed into a bug. But some really good classic imagery. Ends on a really weird and bizarre note, but at the same time, yeah, it's quite a famous panel. Overall, really, really cool. And then after that, another classic, another one that was in collection, and this is The Woman Next Door, and we get this panel of her peeking out, and the other window forms a giant version of her face, but even though the cover's cool, creepier in the comic itself. Flip it over, and it talks about how this guy, he moves in to a new house, and the house next door is really, really close to his, and the whole building only has one single window on it. Well, that person isn't at home, so they go and they talk to the other door neighbor, and they say, oh yeah, we see something moving around by the window, so we know someone's in there, but we've never seen them. It's some older lady who's a shut-in. Well, he takes the room that's right next to this window, and he leaves it open to air it out when he's awoken in the middle of the night to something very, very strange. There he is sleeping, and we get to hear, young man, are you asleep? And it's this woman across the window sort of taunting him and trying to get his attention. And, I mean, it's a cool reveal shot. I guess I'll go ahead and show you, A, because most people have already seen this, and B, they even put it on the back cover. So it's not, well, I mean, the one of the back pages, not really a spoiler, but this lady across the window, oh my gosh, that's a creepy Junji Ito design. But she's always whispering to him, hey, come over, maybe swing by tomorrow, I'll leave the door unlocked. And Junji Ito with this story really does talk about something that not a lot of people have talked about, and it should be talked about more, and that is, you know, male sexual assault, you know, and especially, you know, I mean, I've seen this in real life where just older women will start hitting on younger men, some cases minors, and it's usually just in a jokey way that they don't really mean anything by, but it really makes them uncomfortable, and it's one of those things that not too many people are really talking about, so major props for Junji Ito to do a story on this, and the idea that, you know, you have someone next door that is literally a predator in, like, looking over at your house and trying to get you to come into their house. I mean, it's got dark, real-world stuff, but also cool Junji Ito art, and yeah, that's just, there's something, you know, despite this being so abstract, there's something true behind it, and that's really scary, and the way she keeps trying to inch closer and closer, absolutely terrifying story, you know? Anyway, moving on. Next story we have is called Washed Ashore. I've heard so many people and the Junji Ito Maniac anime refer to this as the thing that drifted ashore, so feels kind of weird to call this one washed ashore, but I guess Viz again is going for the simpler versions of their titles. We get the story, though, about how this big undersea creature has washed ashore. And boy, if you pay attention to the news, stuff like this does happen. Usually just like amorphous blobs of fat that people think is a dead whale that got tumbled around the ocean too long. But strange things do wash up on the shore. And yeah, everybody's going to take a look at it, including this guy who says, I don't know why I was drawn here. I hate the ocean, but I just had to see the thing that drifted ashore. And we get to find out why he hates the ocean. He talks about how when he was a young boy, he went into the aquarium and saw all these spooky deep sea fish. And boy, this does trigger a memory or two. I remember going in those that they even, let me flip back a page, they have the little creepy aquarium room that's kind of, yeah, I think they say half basement or something. Man, and they always kept it so dark too. Those places are super creepy. But he talks about how he's kind of hated the ocean, and man, so many things are down there. And yeah, he's always hated the ocean kind of because of this, and he doesn't know why he came and looked. Of course, we get more gawkers, and we get the scientist going and taking a look and studying and hypothesizing, like, do you think it had bioluminescence with these little rods on the side? And the idea that it was down there by itself, a slight glow, but the only thing in the pitch black darkness. Ah, man, the oceans. The oceans. But anyway, he's there, and a girl starts to stumble in the heat. He takes her aside, and she was also drawn to this location. She also hates the ocean, but we find out her husband died in a shipwreck. So yeah, she has a pretty valid reason to hate it. And they never found his body, and she's like, I just have to give up and not think about him in the bottom of the ocean. And there's a picture of his ship sinking. And she, of course, has strange dreams too. But the scientists are going to notice something quite strange with the creature. And let's just say this has a very strange and disturbing ending to it. Really cool stuff. But man, Junji Ito striking at a fear. Not a lot of people talk about, but man, deep down in the bottom of the oceans, that's a crazy place. You don't want to go there. Anyway, after that, we get the strange tale of the tunnel with this young girl and her brother down there in the tunnel. And in this story, they talk about there's this guy, he's going home and he hasn't been there in a while, and he sees the overgrown tunnel and he goes, I know it's still there. And I think they actually cut this part out of, this was adapted into Maniac. I think they actually cut out the part where he's older at the beginning, which, if I'm right about that, it kind of sucks because it does give the story a sense of foreboding doom, you know? But anyway, he talks about how when he was a really little kid, his mother wandered into this tunnel and got killed by a train, and everyone thinks it's suicide except for their father, who says something's wrong with this tunnel. We then jump forward a few years. He's with his friends who they say, hey, let's go explore that haunted tunnel that people wander into and go missing or are never seen from again. And then they're like, oh no, wait, that was the tunnel your mom died in. Sorry about that. But they agree to go anyway, and they go into the tunnel and they start telling legends and stories and about how, like, there's these creepy scratch marks because trains used to derail and kill people all the time. And I really do love this picture. They talk about this legend with this train full of corpses and then a woman covered in blood. That's really cool. But I like this line where this character snaps and they go, don't tell scary stories about the tunnel inside the tunnel. But anyway, they're going to get creeped out when they see what they think is a ghost, and while everyone else runs away, it turns out it's the main character's younger sister, and she's going to be the one that's drawn to this tunnel now and starts coming back to it over and over again. And I love this idea that it's like a presence that you're drawn to, and you know the tunnel's bad, and all of a sudden you wake up and you find yourself back in it. And I don't want to say too much of the rest of the story. I will say there is this fun thing with a few scientists that are kind of studying the tunnel, and you get a little bit of, a tiny taste of sci-fi in here. But also, when you find out what the bad thing is in the tunnel, oh my gosh, it is a big, scary, and feels like unescapable thing, and it's a really creepy idea that Junji Ito had that actually was pretty fun in the animation as well. But yeah, really did like this story. It's a little bit longer, gets a chance to breathe, and I thought it was pretty cool. Moving on after that, we get the story Bronze Statue. Cool cover with the bricks there. And we open up with this lady murdering her husband, so get a taste of the horror right off the bat, pushing him into the water. And then we jump forward a few years, and we see a local group of moms sitting around gossiping when a new mom and her kid shows up, and they're like, oh yeah, play with our kids at the sandbox. And the kid asks, who are those statues? And they explain that that's the mayor who's gone missing, and that's his wife. And they comment on the young and pretty wife, and everybody starts to kind of giggle there. They say, oh, that doesn't look like her at all. She says that's what she looked like when she was young. No one believes her. And yeah, the idea that it's like, you're too vain to actually look like how you are, and you commission this unrealistic statue. But yeah, the mayor's missing, and we read the prologue. We have an idea what happened there. But one of the wife, the other neighborhood kids say, oh yeah, that talks to us sometimes. Okay, yep. Bronze statues, some of them are kind of creepy, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more with that, especially like, those statues of little kids on benches, or the guys that paint themselves bronze and pretend to be statues. But anyway, we get to see this artist that the lady's commissioned, and I love him pouring the molten metal into these molds. Really cool. But this is what she actually looks like, and she's commissioned a full-body statue, and she's going to have an unveiling party, and she invites the 4 ladies from the park. How does she know us? How does she know we go to the park every day? How does she know so much? But of course, they've really been gossiping about her. They don't know if they really want to go, but they decide to, and it's only the 4 of them at the statue unveiling party. But let's just say things take a dark turn. I don't want to spoil any of the story beyond this, but it actually does go for a while. Like, there's several points where I thought the story would end, and it doesn't. And I don't want to say that's a bad thing. It does feel like it goes on for a bit, but it always ups the ante each time you think it's going to be over, and it keeps going, and it gets to the point where it's like, oh, what are we doing now? Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's gross. And yeah, it's not my favorite Junji Ito story ever, but I really do like the idea, the vanity behind putting up a sculpture of a living person, the wealthy elitism thinking you're better than the citizens who are in your park, and the idea that there's this artist who wants to do his work and in turn gets kind of corrupted by the patron. It's not about the art anymore. It's about doing whatever this crazy rich lady's whims are, what you really do see in the art world, but kind of making him into a monster because he has to live through his patron. That was an interesting thing as well. So a good bit of maybe more a story about the horrors of classes than it is about just creepy statues. There are some creepy statues in here, though, don't worry about that. But almost feels like a like an EC Comics story. Almost feels like something you'd see in Tales from the Crypt or something like that. And it did have some really fun moments. Again, not my favorite, though. After that, though, Floaters. And man, you want to talk about the weird psychological story. This one I really did like. It starts off where this guy sees his friend hunting what he thinks is butterflies in the middle of the night, and he yells and says, "Go away, I don't want you here." And he thinks that's kind of weird, and he's walking around with his girlfriend when he sees some little black hairy thing stuck in a tree, and when they touch it, the hairs vibrate and produce a sound, and it says, "I love you, Kyoko," and that's his girlfriend's name, but it's in the sound of his best friend's voice. And that's a creepy, weird thought. He gives the hairball back to his best friend since it's his voice, but he finds that their creepy weirdo friend also found a hairball, and he's kept it in this jar, and he's like, yeah, when you hit the hairs on this one, it talks about that guy that follows his best friend around, and he's like, oh man, I hate that guy, I want to kill him. So it's sort of like this guy's secrets, his thoughts, are coming out of his mouth and turning into almost like dandelion seeds. They go to talk to him. He's going to make the creepy kid give the hairball back, and he's not answering the door, so they go around to his window, and when they open it, a whole bunch just fly out, and now they kind of screwed their friend over because all of his thoughts and feelings are just floating around in the sky now, and he's like, what did you do? And the creepy little kid's gonna go and collect him because he's super interested in that. So yeah, man, deep, dark, psychological story here. The idea that your thoughts, things that you would never say to someone, but sometimes you have a bad thought, like that guy that follows you around and, I could almost kill him. Well, obviously you're not going to, and you wouldn't ever say that out loud, but there it floats away. And obviously the bigger, more dramatic thing of being in love with your best friend's girlfriend, yeah, that's not something you would ever really want to say out loud too, but you see parallels to things like, cyberbullying and stuff, and what if the whole town, just started getting nosy in your personal business. But also Junji Ito does an interesting thing talking about how these little hairballs work and how they might, interact with the world, and it becomes a really interesting idea too. So deep, dark, both on the personal psychological level, but then also just understanding how the fantasy element works as well. I really like that. Really good, really well thought out story. And yeah, it goes on, again, this is a longer story, it goes on for a bit, and they do have a chance to flesh out a lot of the ideas here. It's really cool. After that, we're at the last story already, and this is the bloody story of Shirosuna. Again, sorry if I mispronounced that, but yeah, no, if you don't like blood, there's a lot of blood in this story, let me just tell you. But this is a very classic story. This guy, he's going to do small town medicine. That's what his passion is. That's what he wants to do for his career. He meets the mayor, who is looking not that great, and they say there's not even a road into this town. It's so small, so out of the way, there's no road. And we get this nice little thing. He's like, it's like stepping back in time. But he goes to look at the town. A bunch of the people look not so good, like the mayor there, and he starts to hear this thump, 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 a consistent sort of pulse that's in this town that no one else seems to hear or pay attention to. They set him up at his new clinic, and the nurse, of course, looks just like everyone else, and they say, yeah, there's not even any plumbing here, you're gonna have to get some well water, and if it looks red, It's just a little rusty. Just go ahead and drink it. And he finds that, like, everybody in this town has the same blood type, and a lot of people suffer from, what's it called, anemia? And yeah, he's finding that this town is very strange, but on his first day, he receives a patient that's going to get him to look into things further. This young woman, again, not looking too great, comes in with her younger sister and says, yeah, she started bleeding. Can you bandage her up? And he, of course, is going to say, what, was she hit by a car or something? And they say, nah, people in this town just bleed sometimes. If you could bandage her up, that'd be great. But if you don't, whatever, she'll just stop eventually. So something's going on with the town's blood, making people look like that. And it's a really classic wandering into a small town that's got something absolutely horrific going on behind it. Really reminds me of a lot of classic horror, really reminds me of, like, say, Lovecraft or something. And I really do like when you find out what's going on, it's not going to be something cliche that you've seen before or something underwhelming. It's going to be something quite bizarre that when we get just a little peek at what's really going on, it's just a crazy, crazy idea. And overall, that was a good, more classically styled story. Anyway, 9 stories in Tombs, lots and lots of classic stuff in here. Again, Slug Girl, The Window Next Door, those 2 would be worth buying it alone. But then some other classic stories, you know, Tombs itself, The Strange Story of the Tunnel, that very last one with the Bloody Village. There's some really good stuff in here. 9 stories, I thought that none of them were bad at all, and some of them are just downright great. So, overall, Tombs, as always, I love these Junji Ito story collections. I definitely would recommend it, and since they're anthology, if you are new, you can step into Tombs right now. It can be your first one if you want to. Traditional wisdom is that Shiver and Fragments of Horror are the best, but this is still a really, really good collection, and I really do love it. Definitely recommended. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Junji Ito playlist, where you can see my reviews for, like, say, the new Junji Ito Maniac anime, and also other ones of the comics. I've actually covered all of the Junji Ito story collection, so if you like this video in this format, there's more of those. All the ones with the little badge. I'm working on the other books as well. I want to talk about everything he's ever written, but it takes time to read. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Junji Ito playlist should be popping up on the bottom there. And have a good day now.